The fire didn't burn her all at once. It started at her wrist, where the little girl's fingers had locked around her arm like a vice, and then it moved everywhere, up through her shoulder, across her chest, swallowing her whole as the ceiling beam gave way and came down on top of her. Emma Clark didn't let go. She didn't think about it. She didn't calculate the drop from the second-floor window, or consider that she was a nanny, not a firefighter, not anyone paid to die. She thought about Sophie's eyes, 6 years old and wide with the specific terror of a child who has already lost one parent and can feel herself losing everything again. So Emma held on. She covered the girl's head with her own body, and she held on until the smoke turned to darkness. She didn't know that downstairs on the marble steps of the Whitmore estate, a man in a charcoal suit was watching the second-floor window with the stillness of someone who had learned long ago that panic was a luxury he could not afford. And she didn't know that when he saw the shape of a woman folding herself over his daughter's body in the orange light, something in Declan James Whitmore, a man the financial press called a visionary, and the streets of Chicago called something else entirely, cracked open for the first time in 4 years. She didn't know any of that. She was unconscious before she hit the ground. Emma had taken the job in September, 6 weeks after her mother's second stroke left her right side unreliable, and her speech careful and slow. The timing was not luck. Emma had been applying to every private household position in the city because private household positions paid 3 times what a classroom aide position paid, and 3 times was the number she needed. Her younger sister, Dana, was a junior at Northwestern on a scholarship that covered tuition and nothing else. Rent, groceries, the accessible apartment on the first floor of the building on Elm Street where their mother now lived. Those were Emma's numbers to solve. The agency woman had looked at Emma's resume with the particular expression of someone who had expected more. "You have a teaching degree," the woman said. "I do," Emma said. "Most candidates with a teaching degree aren't interested in household positions." Emma smiled in the way she had perfected since her mother came home from the hospital. Pleasant. Contained. "I'm interested in this one." The Whitmore estate was 40 minutes north of the city, set back from the lake on a property that looked like someone had taken an English manor house and told it to be practical. Though stone walls, clean lines, cameras at every corner that didn't bother to hide. The housekeeper who met her at the door was a woman named Mrs. Hargrove, 60, efficient, with the eyes of someone who had seen many nannies come and go and had opinions about most of them. "Mr. Whitmore, Mrs. Hargrove said, on the drive from the gate, has very specific expectations." What kind of expectations? Quiet ones. She glanced at Emma in the rearview mirror. "He doesn't want Sophie overstimulated. She doesn't need enrichment activities or creative expression frameworks. She needs someone consistent. Someone who shows up." Emma looked out the window at the lake. "What happened to her last nanny?" Mrs. Hargrove was quiet for a moment. She found the position emotionally taxing. Emma didn't ask anything else. Sophie Whitmore was small for 6 and held herself like a child who had been told to be careful too many times. She had her father's dark eyes and her mother's auburn hair, which no one brushed the way her mother used to brush it, with the careful attention that makes a child feel seen. She met Emma at the foot of the staircase with her hands clasped behind her back. "Are you the new one?" Sophie asked. "I'm Emma," the last one cried, Sophie said. "In the kitchen." Mrs. Hargrove gave her tea and she left anyway. "That sounds hard," Emma said. Sophie considered this. "Are you going to cry?" "Not in the kitchen," Emma said. Something in Sophie's face shifted. Not quite a smile, but the precursor to one. Emma recognized it. It was the same thing Dana did when she was 9 and pretending she didn't care about something she cared about very much. They didn't meet Declan Whitmore for 3 days. He was in the house. Emma heard him in the early mornings, footsteps on the floor above, the low sound of phone calls conducted in a voice that didn't rise or fall much regardless of what was being said. But he kept to his wing, and the estate was large enough that keeping to a wing was easy. When she finally saw him, it was at the bottom of the back staircase, 6 in the morning, Sophie asleep upstairs. He was wearing a suit already. He had coffee in his hand. He looked at Emma standing in the kitchen in her flannel shirt and her socked feet with the expression of a man who had simply not accounted for another person being awake. "Mrs. Clark," he said. "Mr. Whitmore." She held up her own mug. "I can leave." "You don't have to." He looked at the window above the sink, the grey early light coming off the water. "How is she sleeping?" Emma thought about Sophie's nightmares, the way the girl woke up at 2 a.m., calling for someone she didn't name, the way Emma had taken to leaving the hall light on and her own bedroom door open. Better than she was, Emma said, which was true, and more useful than the full truth. He nodded slowly. He didn't thank her. He finished his coffee, standing at the counter, and then he set the mug in the sink and walked out. Emma watched his shoulders in the doorway and thought, this man is carrying something very heavy, and he has been carrying it alone for a long time. She didn't think much more about it. She had her own things to carry. The fire started in the third-floor electrical room on a Tuesday night in November, 7 weeks into the job. Emma would later learn it was not an accident. She didn't know that yet when the smoke alarm in the hallway pulled her out of a dead sleep at 11:45, and she didn't think about it when she pulled on her shoes and went to Sophie's room first, before her own bag, before her phone, before anything. Sophie was already awake, sitting up in bed, coughing. "Okay," Emma said, going to her. "Okay, I've got you. He's going to be outside." She hoped this was true. She picked Sophie up and the girl locked her arms around Emma's neck. The hallway was already thick. Emma had grown up in a house where her father was a volunteer firefighter, where they had practiced this every year until it was muscle memory. Low to the ground, door first, feel the heat before you open it, never go back. She went for the main staircase. It was gone. The fire was eating the walls on the west side with a speed that felt personal, felt intentional, and there was a moment, just a moment, when Emma stood at the top of the stairs and understood clearly that she had very few choices left. She went for the window at the end of the hall. The drop was 15 feet onto the stone terrace. Emma looked at it. She looked at Sophie's face pressed into her shoulder. "Close your eyes," Emma said. "Keep them closed." She broke the window with her elbow, ignoring the glass, and she was halfway over the sill when the beam from the ceiling came loose. It caught her across the upper back and the left side, a blow that took her breath completely. She pitched forward. She turned herself in the air, pure reflex, nothing trained, so that Sophie landed on top of her, not underneath, and Emma hit the stone terrace with her left shoulder and her hip and the back of her head. She did not let go of Sophie. That part she knew, even as she lost everything else. When Emma woke up, it was not like waking up. It was like being dragged through cold water toward a light she wasn't sure she wanted to reach. There was pain in her shoulder so specific and bright it seemed almost architectural, like someone had rebuilt her bones out of broken glass. There was a compression in her chest when she breathed. There was a weight in her left leg that didn't feel like her leg. There was also, unmistakably, the smell of very expensive flowers. She forced her eyes open. The ceiling was the first thing, high, cream-colored, one small camera blinking in the corner that was not subtle, but was probably not meant to be. She turned her head, which cost her. The room was not a hospital room, or rather, it was a hospital room that had been given significant resources and told to pretend it wasn't. The IV stand was there, the monitors were there, but they were arranged around a bed with actual sheets, and on the table next to the bed there was a vase of white peonies and a glass of water and a photograph of Sophie. Sophie was grinning in the photograph, gap-toothed, on a dock somewhere in summer. Emma's next breath came out shaky with something that wasn't quite crying. "She's fine." The voice came from the chair beside the door. Emma turned, slower this time, and found Declan Whitmore watching her. He was in a different suit from the night of the fire, but he looked like he hadn't slept in the same number of days. Like the suit was a habit his body performed without him. His jaw was dark with stubble. His hands were wrapped around a coffee cup he had apparently stopped drinking from some time ago. "Sophie is fine. Smoke inhalation. They're treating it. She's been asking for you every 4 hours." Emma closed her eyes briefly. "Good," she said. Her voice was wrong, rougher than it should be. "That's good." There was a long pause. "You broke your shoulder," Declan said. 3 ribs. There is a hairline fracture in your left femur. They tell me you should have broken your neck." Emma opened her eyes. "Well," she said. "I didn't." He looked at her for a long moment with an expression that Emma couldn't read, which was unusual, because she was generally good at reading people. "No," he said. "You didn't." He set the coffee cup down on the windowsill and stood up, walking to the window, his back to her. The view was the lake again, grey November light. The fire was not an accident. The electrical room was a cover. 3 men entered through the service gate at 11:15. They were there for Sophie. The room was very quiet. "Why?" "Why?" Emma said. "Because someone wants to send me a message." He said it without drama, like he was giving her a market report, which told Emma that this was not the first message he had received. If you had not been in that hallway, if you had gone to your own room when the alarm sounded, or gone down the back stairs like the protocol says. "Protocol," Emma repeated. He turned. "There is an emergency protocol. Mrs. Hargrove went over it with you." "She did," Emma said. "The protocol doesn't mention Sophie first." Declan looked at her. His expression was doing the thing again that she couldn't read. "No," he said, "it doesn't." Another silence. Emma became aware of the weight of the IV in her arm, the particular exhaustion of a body that has been through something and is only beginning to understand how much it has been through. "There's something else," Declan said. "All right." He walked back to the chair. He didn't sit down. He stood with his hands at his sides in the posture of a man who has prepared something and is not sure it is going to land. The men who were hired, they're professionals. They failed on Tuesday, which means whoever hired them is going to be asked why they failed, and the answer to that question is going to be you. You saw two of them in the corridor before you went out the window. He waited. Do you remember that? Emma thought back. The smoke. The two shapes at the top of the east staircase, stopped by the fire where it had jumped across. A face. She hadn't thought of it as a face she was memorizing. She had thought about the window and Sophie's weight. But it was there, yes, she said. I remember. Declan nodded once. Then as of Tuesday night, you are a loose end. Emma stared at the ceiling for a moment. I'm a nanny, she said. I'm a nanny from Evanston, you were. He pulled something from his inside jacket pocket and held it out. Emma took it. It was a piece of paper, folded official, with a gold seal she didn't immediately recognize. She opened it. It took her a second to understand what she was reading, and then another second to understand that she was not misreading it. Declan James Whitmore and Emma Rose Clark. She looked at the date. This is from 4 days ago. Yes, I was unconscious 4 days ago. Yes, she set the paper down on the sheet in front of her. You forged a marriage certificate, she said. While I was unconscious. I had it processed while you were unconscious, he said. There is a distinction. That is not a distinction. Her voice had found its footing now. You can't. That is not something you can do to a person. I'm aware it's not conventional, Mr. Whitmore. She said his name with precision, like a pin going into the exact right place. I jumped out of a window with your daughter. Not because you asked me to, not because it was in the contract. I did it because she was there and she was scared. And while I was unconscious after doing that, you signed my name to a legal document without asking me. Declan sat down. It looked like it cost him something. The people who were hired on Tuesday night will find you, he said. Emma. Her first name, which he had never used before. If you are Sarah Clark, Nanny, you are a liability, a witness, an easy target. If you are Emma Whitmore, my wife, you are untouchable. The rules of the people I deal with, and there are rules, regardless of what they look like, those rules protect family. They protect spouses. They have protected that line for 60 years because the alternative is chaos that hurts everyone. He looked at her. I know what I'm asking. You're not asking, she said. You already did it. I know. He didn't look away. I know, and I'm sorry, but I need you to understand that it was the only thing I could think of that would keep you alive. Your sister is in the city, your mother. Emma looked at him very fast. I know about your mother, he said. I know about the apartment and the speech therapy and the grocery delivery and the Northwestern scholarship that doesn't cover enough. He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. I'm not saying that to threaten you. I'm saying it so you know that I understand what I've put at risk by bringing you into this house, and I will not leave you exposed because of it. The monitors beeped. Outside the window, a bird crossed the grey sky and disappeared. Where is she? Emma said. Sophie, where is she right now? Down the hall, Mrs. Hargrove is with her. I want to see her, Emma. I want to see her, she said again. And then I want you to explain all of it. Everything. Not the version you give the people who work for you, the real version. She looked at him steadily. And then I'll tell you what I decide. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood and went to the door. Sophie came in ahead of Mrs. Hargrove, which was clearly against instructions, moving fast in her socked feet, and she stopped at the edge of the bed with her hands pressed together in front of her, like she was trying to hold herself still. You have a cast, Sophie said. I do, Emma said. Does it hurt a little bit? Emma opened her arm on the uninjured side. Come here. Sophie climbed up carefully, with a 6-year-old's specific carefulness that is more precise than any adult's because the stakes feel higher to them, and she settled against Emma's right side and put her small hand flat on Emma's collarbone. I kept my eyes closed, Sophie said. The whole way down. Like you said. I know, Emma said. You did great. I wasn't scared. Sophie said this in the particular tone of a child stating what they need to be true. Well, a pause. I was a little scared. That's okay, Emma said. I was a little scared too. From the doorway, Declan Whitmore watched the two of them, and his face did something Emma had not seen it do in the 7 weeks she'd worked for him. It came apart, just for a second. Just enough. The weeks that followed were not easy. Recovery did not announce itself or move in a straight line. Emma's shoulder healed at its own pace, which was slower than Helga. The physical therapist Declan brought in, a woman built like a retired Olympic athlete with a voice like a stage whisper and zero interest in Emma's pain threshold, considered acceptable. Every morning at 9, Helga appeared at the door of the room Emma had been installed in, which was more comfortable than any room Emma had ever slept in, which she was working hard not to think about too much. If you protect that shoulder, it forgets how to work, Helga said, one morning in week 2, watching Emma grip the resistance band with an expression that was not gritted teeth, but was close. You're not protecting it, you're babying it. Big difference. They feel the same from the inside, Emma said. No, Helga said, unmoved. They don't. Push. Declan was in the house more now than he had been before the fire. Emma would hear him on the phone below or see him at the end of the hall when she was walking the parallel bars they'd set up near the window. He always stopped when he saw her. He didn't hover, exactly, but he didn't look away either. Sophie had appointed herself Emma's primary company, a role she took seriously. She arrived every afternoon with her school tablet and her collection of chapter books, and she would install herself on the chaise near the window and read aloud, which Emma had learned was Sophie's highest expression of comfort. To read to someone, the way someone had once read to her. She did that with her mother, Declan told Emma one evening. He'd brought her tea she hadn't asked for and was standing near the window with the specific awkwardness of a man who does not usually bring people tea and isn't sure where to put his hands now. Carolyn used to read to her every night. He stopped. After Sophie wouldn't read out loud for a year. First time I heard her doing it again was last month, in your room. Emma looked at her tea. I'm glad, she said, and then because it seemed like he needed to hear it. She's not replacing her mother. She's figuring out how to have both, the memory and the new thing. She paused. Kids do that when you let them. He looked at her for a moment. You're very sure of things, he said. Not an accusation, more like he found it interesting. No, Emma said. I'm just sure of a few things. Children aren't actually one of the complicated ones. What are the complicated ones? She met his eyes. You, she said. You're a complicated one. He laughed. It was short and surprised, and it changed his whole face, the way a window being opened changes a room. Emma looked back at her tea and said nothing else. 3 weeks after she'd woken up, Declan told her about the gala. It was held each year at a private arts foundation in the city. It was the kind of event that existed nominally for cultural philanthropy, and existed actually for the people Declan moved among to confirm that the various arrangements of power were still in place. Going would mean appearing in public as his wife for the first time. I'm not walking, Emma said. Her leg was better, but the femur fracture still made the idea of heels on a marble floor somewhere between optimistic and delusional. I know, Declan said. You'll use the chair. I'm not interested in being displayed, she said. I'll go because it's necessary, not because it's a performance, understood. And I want to know who's going to be there, she said. Specifically. He told her. He told her all of it the way she'd asked him to in the hospital. The names, the arrangements, the structure of the thing he'd built and the enemies he'd made building it. It was a longer conversation than she'd expected. She listened without interrupting, which he seemed to find unusual, and at the end of it she sat quietly for a while, and then she said, The man who hired the people who came for Sophie. He'll be there, Marcus Fenn, Declan said. He'll look for weakness, Emma said. Yes, then we don't give him any. The night of the gala, Declan was the one who fastened the necklace. Sapphires, cold against her sternum, his fingers careful at the back of her neck. They didn't speak. The silence was the kind that has weight to it. That means something, though Emma hadn't yet decided exactly what it meant. Marcus Fenn found them within 20 minutes of their arrival. He was the kind of man who had learned that cruelty landed softer when it was delivered with charm. Silver-haired, well-tailored, with a smile that went right up to but not into his eyes. He looked at Emma's wheelchair with the particular expression that people use when they want you to know they've noted something without admitting they've noticed it. Declan, Fenn said. I heard about the fire, a tragedy. He glanced at Emma, and this must be the famous Mrs. Whitmore, the nanny who became a wife. He let the word sit there heavy with implication. The woman, Emma said pleasantly, who had a better evening than the 3 men you sent. The smile on Fenn's face went very still. I'm sorry, he said. I saw their faces, Emma said. She held his gaze with the same steadiness she'd once used on a classroom of 27 8-year-olds, who had decided to test her in the first week of school. I remember faces. It's something people underestimate about nannies, I think. We spend a lot of time being invisible. You'd be surprised what you see when no one notices you. She tilted her head. The man on the east corridor had a scar through his left eyebrow. Half-moon shape. I assume that's in a file somewhere. Fenn said nothing. And the lapel pin, Emma continued. She nodded at the pin on his jacket. Small bronze, the shape of a compass rose with one point longer than the others. One of them was wearing something with that shape. A tie clip. Same rose. She smiled. Specific thing to give your employees. The silence around them had grown. It had become the kind of silence that meant other people were listening while pretending not to. Declan stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet, which was more effective than loudness would have been. You put your hand on my daughter, Marcus, and then you put your hand on my wife. A pause. I'm going to let tonight be the last time I say those 2 sentences. Whatever you want from me, whatever you think you're owed. That conversation is open. This one is closed. He looked at Fenn with the patient expression of a man stating a fact. "We understand each other." Fenn adjusted his lapel. He looked at Emma once more, differently this time, with something closer to assessment than contempt. Then he looked at Declan. "We understand each other," he said. He walked away. The sound in the room slowly resumed around them. Declan bent down near her ear. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "You would have done it with your hands," Emma said. This was cleaner. He was quiet for a moment. "The pin," he said. "You actually saw that, yes. In the smoke. In the dark. While you were falling." "It was a distinctive shape," Emma said. "I'm a teacher. We remember details." She heard him exhale slowly. "Emma! Declan! I'd like to take you home," he said. "Good," she said. "Sophie will be up. She doesn't sleep well when we're not there." He pushed her chair toward the door. His hand rested there, not like he was managing her, but like he just wanted to be in contact with something real. Later, back at the new estate, smaller than the first, better secured, on a different side of the lake. The house was quiet. Mrs. Hargrove reported that Sophie had held out until 9:30, and then surrendered to sleep with her book still open on her chest. Emma checked on her, standing in the doorway, looking at the small face soft with sleep. She heard Declan come up behind her. They stood there together without speaking, in the particular, companionable silence of people who have survived something. Eventually she turned and made her way to the sitting room and lowered herself carefully onto the couch. Declan sat in the chair across from her. He didn't turn on more lights. The fire was enough. "I want to tell you something," he said. Emma waited. "The night of the fire, when I was outside and I saw you, in the window with Sophie." He stopped. He started again, the way people do when they are being careful about something they are not usually careful about. "My wife died 4 years ago. Accident on the highway in February. I was with her. I got out. She didn't." He looked at the fire. "I have been running this whole thing, the estate, the security, the position I hold in all of it. I have been running it on the principle that you keep the walls high enough and nothing gets through." And then a 28-year-old woman from Evanston, in a flannel shirt and socked feet, just decided that the wall didn't apply to her. He looked at her. "You scared me," he said. "You scared me more than the people shooting at me do, because they I understand. They want something I can identify and negotiate. You just—" He stopped again. "You just loved her," he said simply. "My daughter. Right from the beginning. Not because I asked you to or because it was part of the position. You just did it." Emma looked at her hands. The ring was on her left hand. He had put it there in the hospital, a thing she'd been turning over in her mind for weeks. The ring on the left hand, the correct hand, as if he'd known even then how he meant it. "I love her," Emma said, the first time she'd said it out loud. It sounded exactly as true as it felt. "I love that kid. She reads out loud to people when she doesn't know how else to take care of them. She introduces herself to strangers with her whole name, first and last, and then shakes their hand. She had nightmares for 4 weeks, and she never complained once, because she didn't want to worry you." Emma looked up. "You should tell her, by the way, that it's okay to complain, that she doesn't have to be brave at you." "I know," he said. "I'm learning." A pause. "You're teaching me." The fire settled and resettled. "This is not what I thought my life was going to be," Emma said. "Not a complaint, just an observation. 6 months ago I was applying for a classroom aide position in Oak Park. I know. I'm still going to make sure Dana graduates," she said. "And my mother needs her appointments on Thursdays. Those things aren't negotiable. I know that too." He reached into his pocket and put a folder on the coffee table between them. "Dana's remaining undergraduate expenses, covered if she agrees to it. Your mother's full care plan, specialist visits, the apartment lease on Elm Street extended at the current rate, indefinitely." He pushed it across. "Not as leverage, not as compensation, as," he paused, "because they're yours and you came into this having already given up enough." Emma looked at the folder. "You keep doing that," she said. "What? Deciding what I need and providing it without asking." He blinked. "Is that wrong?" "It's incomplete," she said. "Ask me, Declan, just ask me." He was quiet. Then Emma thought about it. Honestly, the way she hadn't let herself think about things for a long time, because thinking honestly about what you need is a luxury that requires some sense of ground beneath you. "I need this to be real," she said, finally. "If I'm going to be in this house, with that girl, with you, I need it to be real, not a protection arrangement, not a contract." She looked at him. "I'm not interested in pretending." Declan held her gaze for a long time. He had very dark eyes, and when they were fully open like this, when he wasn't managing his expression, he looked younger than he usually did. He looked like someone who had been carrying something heavy, and had been waiting longer than he knew to be allowed to set it down. "Neither am I," he said. "Not anymore." He moved from the chair to the couch, not all at once but deliberately, the way he did most things. He sat close. He didn't touch her immediately. He waited, the way someone waits when they are not sure of their welcome. Emma leaned into him, her uninjured shoulder against his arm, and he exhaled, a long, unsteady breath, and put his arm around her very carefully, as though she was something worth being careful with. Outside the window, the lake was black and the sky above it was beginning to lighten along the edge, the specific blue that precedes sunrise, and means that the night is, finally, over. Emma closed her eyes. She had come to this house with a resume and a set of numbers that didn't add up. She had jumped out of a window, and she had woken up in someone else's story, a story with a language she was still learning, walls she was still mapping, enemies she was still counting. She had not chosen any of it. She had only chosen, one night in November with smoke filling a hallway, to hold on. Sometimes that's the whole thing. Sometimes that one choice is where everything starts. Sophie found them there in the morning, asleep on the couch, Emma's head on Declan's shoulder, his head tipped against hers. She stood in the doorway in her pajamas with her book under her arm and her hair a disaster, and she looked at them for a long moment with the expression of a child who has been hoping for something so long that she had almost stopped believing it was possible. Then she walked over and climbed onto the couch on Emma's other side, tucking herself in like she had always belonged there. She opened her book. She began to read aloud.